Hello, well, Frederik, welcome back.
Thank you.
Frederik. Frederik is our first double guest because we had him on the Geek Recipe before Tempest Rising was released.
Yes.
Was it more than a year before, I think? Because
it's a couple of years ago now.
Yeah. So, so Tempest Rising has been a big success, and it took a long time to make. What, 5 years?
Yeah, I think 3 years of full production, 5 years from early prototype. Yeah,
and one of the biggest strategy game successes over the last 5 years. So it's been a big hit. And can you tell us a bit about how you sort of crafted it? Because I was mentioning at the beginning about this thing of releasing demos and playtesting and so on. So what was the process of coming to that point where you were almost like, I wouldn't say sure, but you had all the elements to say people are gonna like it?
So I think the vision of the game originally was to give you this sense of being like a badass commander or general, just the same feeling as you had when you played Command & Conquer, Red Alert, StarCraft, Warcraft for the first time. There was some kind of attitude in these games that we really missed. So we crafted the game in the beginning with the goal of trying to recapture those iconic moments that made those games feel special.
Yeah.
And following that, we decided on our other pillars, such as we wanted to create the highest fidelity game possible. So we want to bring back those iconic moments at the highest fidelity possible. And then we want to make a game that is rooted in what established the genre, the classic RTS genre. And instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, we want to do those things really, really well. So base building, resources, controlling your units, and that's essentially what became kind of like the pillars of the game. And we think we struck a right chord with the game. It really brings back that nostalgic feeling, but it also feels like a new game that harkens back to the past. It takes kind of like the best of the past, mixes in the best of the future, and that's Tempest Rising.
Yeah. I mean, you made some pretty bold choices, in my opinion. I mean, there's a big trend these days of creating this, what you call it, like remasters, re-something, right? Which is almost like kind of reprinting something, right?
Yeah.
Whilst you went into a different direction, you wanted to recreate the feel, but with totally modern approach.
Yeah.
In retrospective, do you see it as a bold choice? Do you think there was no other choice? What's your feeling of that in that sense?
Well, in order to reimagine something, it has to exist in the first place, and that means that we would have had to build this game based on an existing IP. We wanted to create a new IP for this, mostly because we still wanted to be able to do something new and something unique in terms of some of our mechanics and where we wanted to take the story of the game, etc. So it's kind of a mix of both. Sure, you can call this a reimagining of what classic RTSs used to be like. But if you go back and play those games, if you play the first Command & Conquer and Tempest Rising right next to each other, they don't really have that much in common. Like you will get a harsh reality check once you play the original MS-DOS version and you see, wow, was it that rough? Well, back then it wasn't. So what we did with Tempest Rising was essentially give you the feeling of what you remembered it was like playing those games. But it's not a reimagining. It's essentially a brand new experience that takes the best of what those games did well and makes a new game.
How do you do that? How do you capture what people remember?
Yeah.
And transform it into actual gameplay?
That's a really interesting question. We did an exercise where we were writing down all the memorable moments that made you feel like a badass in these games. Some of those were, sending in a helicopter in the enemy base with a bunch of engineers and capturing their construction yard, and another was, building like Tesla coils or obelisk of light that saps enemy units. It is, building a harvester, seed harvest stuff. It's building gates and walls around your base. It's like a bunch of different, doing a rush with huge tanks with double barrels. commandos like running around with a single unit that says badass one-liners and can kill enemies with one shot. Like we listed, I think 30 or 40 of these moments of all of our favorite strategy games that made you feel really cool. And we built a game and a vision around those moments. We wanted to make sure that we need to recapture those moments. So the original design and the vision of the game was very much based on like this emotional feeling of how was it, how do I remember it playing Warcraft, Starcraft, Command & Conquer, Dune 2, like all these classic RTS games.
But one thing I keep coming back to when I sort of use the example of how well this was thought through was the music, because
music.
You went to the same composer of the Command & Conquer games, and sort of it does capture the feel, but again, it's crafted in the same way, right? It is a new thing, but using the same sort of feel and such. And was it something that you thought as an opportunistic thing, as like I would call it a marketing thing, or was it really part of the project?
Well, so the vision for the music was actually to take the type of music that was in games like StarCraft and Command & Conquer, very industrial music. Many people seem to remember that games like Command & Conquer had a lot of heavy metal, but it was like 2 tracks out of 40 tracks that was actually with heavy metal guitars. Hell March, everyone remembers, so that's gets the credit for that. But we actually took the inspiration of the original music, and then we had our incredible team of composers reinvent that type of music in 2025. And that became the foundation of the soundtrack. And it wasn't until, I think, a year and a half, 2 years before release that we got the opportunity to meet with Frank Klepacki, the original composer of the music of the Command & Conquer series, and asked him, hey, we know this is a long shot, but would you be interested? We already had the soundtrack done at that point. And he had actually seen the game, he loved it, and he would love to be part of it. So we had to do an extra, I think, 8 or 10 tracks to the game where he had to go back and listen to our reinterpretations of his style and then reinterpret his own music again for this. So you get this modernized version of Frank Klepacki made by Frank Klepacki. It's pretty cool. Like we're really, really proud of that.
One thing you mentioned about the process of development of this game is that at some point you decided that the game was done, but you needed more time. Now, I understand this is not a luxury everyone has, to sort of allow more time to but that was a long process, this thing where you sort of said, I want more time to refine the game and make sure that, we have, the game that we really, really want to release. How did it happen, and how did you use that time?
Sure. So we've come to the harsh realization that most of the games that we've done in the past had a great vision, great idea, great execution, but was undercooked. And usually games are undercooked because of time restraint and budget. You have to get the game out, and you have to do the best you can within that time. We were so lucky that we have a fantastic partner of this game, Saber, our parent company, who bought the game from our previous publisher, THQ. At the same time, together with our new co-publisher, Nightspeak, they decided that, let's give these guys another year of development to really bring this thing home. We were content complete almost a year before that, but this additional year gave us time to really refine the experience. And it gave us time, I think most importantly, to address a lot of player feedback. If you get player feedback 6 months, 3 months before the game comes out, and some of the feedback is so good and you wish you could do it, but it requires an extra year of development. This was our opportunity to actually do something about it. Other ideas, maybe you had an idea 3 years ago, you don't want to do any feature creep, so you scrap that idea. Now it's the time to revisit that. How would the impact be if we re-implement this idea? So it allowed us to really refine the experience, and we decided to take kind of a conservative approach to this. So instead of trying to throw a wrench in the wheel and do something completely, extraordinary and risky, we took what we had and then we just polished and refined and refined based on tons of player feedback until we had something that feels as good as it possibly can within our budget and our framework.
Did you take stuff out?
We took stuff out mostly because we wanted to make sure when we release it, it's as polished as the rest. We took the the third faction in skirmish and multiplayer out. And we did that for the main reason that it was just not balanced and polished enough as a fully playable faction as the other factions were. So that is what we're working on primarily right now, is finishing the third faction to a quality level that's comparable to the rest. And again, we have the opportunity to do this, and I wish many developers had the opportunity to do this, because this is really what I think can make it or break it for many. So we're really, really happy about that.
So do you think that the latest trends into sort of making large use of early access and making sort of releasing games that are undercooked or not fulfilling the promise, is it do you think it's financial choices? Is it more like, I don't know, is it that you think you're done but you're not really done? Is that a thing? Or
well, early access is usually a financial choice, but in most cases where early access is successful, it's a necessary choice when you do a game as a service. But many who develop games that are not games as a service, who are forced to do early access, are doing it because they're forced to do it. It is to, of course, build a community early on, and it is to generate revenue that they can spend making the game better. But truth be told, I think most developers who are going early access wish they had enough funding so they don't have to do early access, but can instead do open betas or closed playtests, etc., where they get the same benefits. They can get tens of thousands of people playing their game, get feedback, but without the repercussions of potentially getting negative reviews because it's not a finished game. And the negative reviews of an unfinished game will inevitably impact the full release of the game, because people will look at that review score of the early access and say, well, this is not really for me, it's not that highly reviewed. Well, it's not done yet. So it's really tricky.
It is. You've got a fairly sizable team, right? 50 people, you said. It's quite a lot of people. How do you keep the vision together along the process? I mean, the long process of development, you've got to have this thing of, okay, guys, don't forget this is the vision, and across all the departments, all the professional people you work with, and so on. How does that happen in a big team?
Well, the team is not that big in the beginning. So as you bring more and more people on board on a project, they are read into the vision document. The vision document is the most important document at the beginning of the project. It's kind of the thing that keeps the entire production together from a creative and vision standpoint. And it's the second document we make after a pitch. It always is. And that document lives throughout development. It's important for every single team member to read it in depth and understand, if I close my eyes, can I imagine the entire game? And do I imagine the same game as you do, and as you, and as you? That's the goal of the vision. And every single time a decision is being made, a design decision, we evaluate it based on the vision document. If it sticks out, we try to get that design back on track to consistently live up to the vision document. So it's really important, and that's how we do it. But again, we bring on people usually one by one, not 50 people at once. That has to be read into a vision. So it's usually not that big of a challenge. Of course, you have people who are not really passionate about a specific type of game we're doing. And for those, you might put them on another project, or they have to figure out if they want to work on what we're working on.
Do you have this thing where basically, which is a common thing in strategy games, where you have to be specialized or interested in the genre to actually fully embrace the project? Do you have this thing where all the people in the team are really passionate about it? Or, I mean, you can afford to have like an artist who's not really into it, just about, Is that something you face as an issue? Or
I actually think one of our benefits is that most of our team were not passionate about RTS games. Most of our team comes from first-person shooters and other genres, and they like certain RTS games, especially the RTS games we're inspired by, but are not nowhere nearly hardcore RTS fans. So what that does is it creates people who are passionate about the game we're making, not necessarily all the other RTS games, but it also brings designers on board and mission designers and so on who design things they think the audience will like, but they don't have, in quotes, the baggage of being hardcore players. And I actually think that's the benefit of Tempest Rising. Because what we've heard of community feedback is that a lot of the hardcore people think we understand what they want. And we do that because we've done a lot of analysis. But on the other hand, a lot of new players are coming to play the game and think we understand what new players want, the non-hardcore players, and that's because we're not the hardcore players ourselves. So I think it's one of our core strengths. It's not a game designed by hardcore strategy people. It's designed by people who are passionate about our own game and who likes RTS games.
One thing to always bear in mind is that the game is successful, but we're not talking about millions of players in the world and so on. So, and one thing that stands out for Tempest Rising is that you don't see a compromise in quality of assets in general. You see everything is glorious, everything is really good looking and so on. What was the process there to strike that balance of I can't really do the best units possible because it's going to cost me a lot of money, but it's visually pleasing so that people don't see there's a compromise. Is that something that you've tackled at some point in the process?
I think it was part of our vision from the very beginning that the visual fidelity of the game needs to be next level. We need to be able to make a game where when you zoom in on the characters and the vehicles, you have a quality of assets that are comparable to first-person, third-person modern games with realistic or hyper-realistic art styles. That was kind of a part of the vision from the very beginning. So with that in mind, we expanded from there. We made sure that every single time we designed something on paper, it fits within that vision. We designed a lot of units that are, of course, very complex, but they all look very good. It was always part of the budget, always part of the plan. It's not something that we later on had to compromise on. If in case that, here's someone who designed 10 units on paper, but it's going to take twice as long to make and we don't have the budget, then we'll make 5 and make them even better looking and better feeling and more badass and so on. So that's kind of what we did. But I already now think we're at the limit of the amount of units, vehicle structures, abilities we have in the game where it doesn't become too overly complex. There's a lot of content in there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And is it the same for narration? I mean, you, again, one of the things that I find amazing about Tempest Rising is that you managed to tell a story with incredibly high quality level assets that are not usually found on modern strategy games, right? Again, what was the thinking behind, we have to go with, this top level narration assets, but also sort of the style, the dialogues, and everything else?
Well, the goal was to be able to create something where you can tell a really in-depth personal story, which is sometimes usually really hard to do when you see everything from a bird-eye perspective, to get that up close and personal. So going back to the classic games that inspired us, like games like StarCraft 2 and StarCraft 1, Command and Conquer, etc., we needed up-close personal characters. So, of course, we limited the amount of characters that you interact with, so we could create those at the highest possible fidelity. Fewer voice actors, but really good voice actors, really good motion capture, really high-fidelity characters, really good writing and scripts in the game, some dramatic performances. So that is kind of our storytelling. It primarily takes place between the missions, and then we add a little bit of a flair to it. Instead of just being someone who talks to you, now you can ask questions like a little, RPG conversation tree. You can decide, do I want to ask this and this and that? Do I want to learn more about the lore? Or you can just click start mission if you want to do that. So we thought that was for us the best way to tell a story in a game like this. So we avoid having overly long missions where a lot of time is spent looking at 2 small characters just having speech bubbles next to each other. Like, we didn't want that. We wanted when you're in the mission, you're in the action, and when you're out of the mission, you're in story mode.
Yeah, but one thing, we've said so many good things about the game is that, of course, there's always going to be someone who moans about stuff and so on. Is there a moment when you read one of the negative reviews or comments from people and say, all right, he's right, we missed this thing, or we missed this, or we got this wrong, or was there a moment like this?
There is, all the time. There is a section of reviews, and you know that as well, who give you a bad review just because they don't like you, they don't like your studio, and for some reason they managed to, maybe they spent money giving you a bad review, or they got a key for the game and then give you a bad review. But 99% of the cases, people have a good point. And it's usually either a misunderstanding, which requires a very quick explanation. Hey, the button you're looking for is actually over here, or the feature, have fun, thanks for the review, and most people change the review. And the others are legitimate feedback. And we take it all in, and we always get back to people who give us bad reviews with the legitimate feedback and tell them, we fixed this, thank you so much, the new update is just around the corner, hope you have fun with the game.
What's the next developments for Tempest Rising? What can we expect from it?
Sure. So we have what we already announced in, back from release. We're hard at work on the third faction. It will come very soon. We will soon have news about that. The third faction is a fully fledged faction with all the bells and whistles. So we hope that's going to be really, really fun for people. And then we have a lot of quality of life updates coming out following that. We also got a lot of feature requests, and we see them all. We see them all on Twitter or X. We see them on Reddit. We see them on YouTube. All the same, Discord. Feature requests over and over and over again, and we are planning and planning and planning for how can we bring these features to the game, because we hear everyone. All of the feature requests you want, we want too. So let's see how it goes, but we're in this for the long run, and we really hope that we get to work on this game for a long time.
The team is, I guess, is the whole team still working on the game? Did you have parts of the team working on something else? Are you dedicating parts of the team to work on stuff? How's it structured right now?
Well, so when you do post-launch, even though you develop content and you develop, the new faction and DLC and so on, there's not enough work for everyone. We have a very small handful of people right now in pre-production on the next title. Which is primarily working on documentation, vision document, pitch material, game design documentation, and so on. Very small, just 3 or 4 people. Everyone else are hands on deck for Tempest Rising. So it's full-on development still, and a lot of cool stuff is coming.
Frederik, we have a tradition here at the hot seat. We have 5 quick-fire questions for you.
I'm ready.
So this is going to be our last 5 questions, and thanks for bringing a genre back. I guess we have been arguing about is our RTS is back in the show for the last 3 episodes. There's always this recurring question. I don't think that they ever were disappearing. But I think it's you're contributed massively to a new era, so in the RTS genre. So thanks for joining us and sharing the story of your studio with us. So ready?
I'm ready. Fire away.
Okay, cool. So 3, 2, 1. One thing you love about the games industry?
I love the passion and creativity and the camaraderie.
Give us an actor or an actress that you'd love to play in Tempest Rising one day.
Henry Cavill.
When was the last time you had true fun playing somebody else's game?
True fun. That was last week.
What was the game?
A very old game called Dark Reign 2 by Pandemic Studios.
Good times, good memories. That's the one to bring back. One thing you hate about the games industry?
I hate the often misunderstanding from the entire industry of how much work and talent it takes to create something, even if it falls flat. I really wish that more people would understand how much talent and passion it requires and have that in mind when they buy and review games. It's incredibly hard.
Go big or go home, or go small and survive?
For us, it's go big and go home. But I would recommend most go small and survive, especially in today's climate.
Thanks for joining us, Frederik.
Thank you so much for having me.